Hey everybody, it's Carlton French. Welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. I am super excited for today's conversation with the wonderful Liberty Schultz.
Hi everybody.
She is 25 years old.
I've been going on 50 first dates with 50 strangers. It really came from a place where I'd gotten out of a tough situationship, and I kind of lost hope that there were good guys out there.
Can men and women just be friends, you think? Like, is that even possible?
Whether it's ghosting, whether it's struggling, meeting people, where do I find people? For a girl, it's so nice to have clear communication. Some guys, they don't know how to shoot their shot. I respect a good ask out.
A guy specifically wanted to ask you on a date or was interested in taking you out. What would be your preferred way?
You're not going to meet someone if you're just sitting on your couch.
Like, are you still on dating apps or?
Definitely. I mean, I've been on 37 first dates. That's a lot of first dates.
What's one thing that specifically single men that are listening, you want them to take away from this episode? I feel like I maybe have done that wrong in the past. Before we jump into the episode, I wanted to take a second and thank you for watching the Single Man Podcast. What started as a vision in October 2023 has grown into something more than I ever imagined. If you haven't seen episode 1 yet, I'm only creating 52 episodes, and my goal is to reach as many single men as possible through these real stories. YouTube tells me that only 10% of those who watch the podcast are subscribed. It would tremendously help the podcast reach more men if you would scan the QR code on the screen right now or click the only link in this episode's description and subscribe on YouTube. Through the link, you can also join our email list, follow us on social media, or even donate so we can keep making an impact in single men's lives. My commitment to you is to use 100% of anything donated to continue improving the quality of the podcast. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now, let's roll the episode.
Challenge yourself constantly. You have to be a little bit patient.
I felt like I was in a hole looking up.
The whole idea is you have to become content in singleness.
I'd be lying if I said I haven't fired off some Instagram DMs.
The word dating is not mentioned in the Bible.
I dedicated my life at Tomorrow World to Jesus.
Welcome to the Single Man Podcast, where we delve into candid conversations with Christian men about their journey to faith, advice for their younger selves, and navigating dating. With a heart to reach men from all walks of life, dive into real stories of redemption, growth, and the hope found in following Jesus. I'm your host, Carlton French, a 29-year-old single Christian, and I'm excited for you to listen to this week's episode. Let's jump into it. Hey everybody, it's Carlton French. Welcome back to the Single Man Podcast. I am super excited for today's conversation with the wonderful Liberty Schultz.
Hi everybody. Excited to be here, Carlton.
Liberty, thanks for coming. I'm really excited to have you on as part of this series I'm doing where I have women come on and share their wisdom and encouragement for single men from a female's perspective, but also encouraging single women as well. So honored that you would come on and share some of your story about how you came to know Jesus and how you're navigating faith and dating. And I think it's going to be really encouraging to a lot of people.
I hope so. I hope it can be. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk all about it. It's gonna be an absolute blast.
Yeah, thanks so much, Liberty. I want to give a little intro on you for people that don't know Liberty. She is 25 years old and is from Atlanta, Georgia, the Chamblee area, and she works as a nurse in Atlanta. And any hobbies you want people to know about you?
Ooh, fun question. I love my hobbies. I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, so I love hobbies.
Okay.
I like rock climbing. I like any sport. I guess people always say hanging out with their friends, but I'd say that's a hobby.
Yeah.
Anything outside, camping, hiking, anything like that.
Okay. Nice. That's awesome. And for the last year or so, you've been doing like a dating thing as well. Is that like a hobby, or it's like that's like not really?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's a side gig.
Yeah.
Part-time dater.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be cool. People that don't know what that is, what have you been doing for that?
Yeah, so I've been going on 50 first dates with 50 strangers for about a year. I just hit the year mark, so we're like a year and a weekend or something.
Yeah.
And I've been going on these dates, and it really came from a place where I'd gotten out of a tough situationship with one of my friends, and it just ended poorly, and I kind of lost hope that there were good guys out there and that there was men that wanted to date and wanted to actually get to know you and value connection. And I one of my friends looked at me one day and said, Lib, there are good guys out there. And I believed her and said, well, I'm going to find them. I'm going to meet some good guys. And that's kind of how this journey started. And I do it with a Adventure Challenge Couples Edition book. And it's scratch off date ideas. So it brings some fun into dating that dating can definitely get kind of boring, you know?
Right.
So now I do fun activities on my dates.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, I'm excited to jump into some hard-hitting dating questions later.
Oh, I'm excited.
So people know how we met. It's actually kind of funny. So we got, I guess, like reconnected at this event in Atlanta. It was like a dating event that a friend had invited me to, and we just happened to be in line next to each other. So just started talking, and yeah. So then we just kind of like stayed in touch, I guess, since that dating event. And I love what you're doing. I didn't even know you were doing that like 50 dates thing when we met. And so that was really cool. Like, oh, wow. And then I listened to some of your podcast. I was like, oh, I didn't know that there was like a faith angle, I guess, to what you're doing at all. Or really like what your heart behind doing that was. And so I was like, wow, some of these episodes are like really encouraging and similar vein, I guess, of what I'm trying to do to like encourage single men around dating. So, and like how you can love Jesus with it too. So yeah, was like, I'd love to have Liberty come on for one of these episodes where I'm having 4 women come on. So
I'm happy to be one of the 4 women.
yeah. So, so people can get to know you a little bit, Liberty. What's kind of your story? Like, how did you come to first know Jesus?
Yeah.
And what's that kind of been like?
Yeah, totally. So I guess everybody starts their like faith journey when they're a kid, right? There was either I was raised in a Christian home or I was raised in a broken home. People always start there. So I feel like it's important to start there because that, you know, dictates a lot of how you are in life, how you were as a kid. But I was raised, we went to church like on Christmas, on Easter, you know, the big Christian holidays.
Yeah.
I went to like vacation Bible school for like 1 week during the summer. You know, probably free childcare for my parents.
Right.
And probably pretty entertaining and fun for me, you know. But I grew up kind of in that like Christian realm. We were more like we went on holidays and big important things. And then in 5th grade, my parents decided to send me to a private school, mainly because academics, the public school in our area was a little challenging, you know. So they decided to send me to a private school. Fun fact, I got held back in 5th grade.
Wow.
I know. I tested and they held me back. They were like, you're not ready for this. But I'm so thankful that I got held back because after starting a private Christian school, I met some friends that were absolutely incredible and really led me to the Lord that this could really be a relationship. It wasn't just on Easter or on Christmas.
Yeah. So that was like what age where you felt like you really knew who Jesus was?
Yeah, I guess I was like 12, 13. How old are you in 5th grade, 6th grade? 12?
Let's see, carry the one. I don't know, like
I was 12. I was 12,
so.
13. I was like aware of what was going on, and it was so cool to see like that these 12, 13-year-old kids could impact me so much. You know, they like invited me to Bible studies and we would like pray together before breakfast. And I realized that this is such like a relational thing that Jesus can be a part of every single second of your life. You know, you can welcome him into every single second and he's there in every single minute of your life.
Yeah.
And it was so cool to see that like transition in myself through 12-year-old kids inspired me. You know, it was super cool.
Wow. It's amazing. So has it been like kind of smooth sailing since, 12, you come to know Jesus, now 25. What's it been like as an adult, I guess?
Yeah, a good 10 years since then. I did go to a private Christian school, so I took like Bible classes. I was around other Christians a lot of the time. Obviously, a private Christian school brings other challenges, but I was learning about the Bible every single day, and that just like grew my faith so much more and allowed me to like be like, oh wow, this is a part of my everyday life. This is a relational thing. And as I learned more about Jesus and more about like the attributes of God and all the stories, I just became more and more invested in it. And then like, I guess I was really invested in faith. I go to college. It's my freshman year of college. I was a college athlete. I played softball in college.
Did you? Okay. Where'd you go?
Francis Marion.
Okay.
Have you ever heard it?
I don't know if I have actually.
It's not Catholic and it's not all girls. I'll tell you that.
Okay.
It sounds like it would be.
Yeah.
But I went to college, and it was my freshman year of college, and I was a college athlete, and college athlete culture is kind of tough. It's a big like party culture. If you're not like playing a game that weekend, you're turning up, you know? So it's tough being surrounded by that and in that culture all the time, where like I went from a spot where I was surrounded by other believers every single day, learning about the Bible. And I was in this like bubble of a Christian school, to going to like this insane party culture of being an athlete, you know?
Yeah.
And it was tough because a lot of your teammates would like push you to do stuff. It's like, you're not being a good teammate if you're not doing this, you know? If you're not coming to our party and getting hammered and you're 19 years old, you're not a good teammate. Yeah. So that was tough.
Yeah.
And after my freshman year of that kind of like tumultuous time, my faith like became so much now of like where it was like mine, I guess, my sophomore year of college. And because I wanted to leave the school that I was at, I was like, I need to transfer. This is a bad environment. I was kind of tired of softball. I was a little burned out. But I had such a calling from the Lord to stay at that school, even though it was in the middle of nowhere.
Where is it?
It's in South Carolina.
Okay.
I just didn't enjoy it. But I had such a calling to stay there and start a house church with some of my friends.
Oh, wow.
And it was such a God thing over and over again. Like the people that I met that were put in my life to start this house church in college. And my sophomore year of college there ended up being one of the best years.
What's a house church for people that don't know what that is?
Yeah, so it was a group of like 5 of us that started this. And we had like worship, we had someone come in and speak, but it was just a very casual environment in like a living room or in like the common space of the dorms, where we'd come and like hang out, have fellowship, but also like worship and learn, and and we'd like usually have a meal or like do a fun activity afterwards. So it was very like community based, but also like very based on like praising the Lord.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then so you moved to Atlanta after graduating?
So I went there for 2 years actually. And then COVID hit. I ended up breaking my back.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I dove into a fence. Yeah, it was really dramatic. But I dove into a fence and broke my back. Couldn't play softball anymore. And COVID hit, so I decided to transfer to Augusta for 2 years, and that's where I went to nursing school. And then I went to Atlanta after that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Augusta
that kind of
University?
where the master's is, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
One of my friends, he lives in Augusta. He's like a doctor, but he went to Augusta for his like PhD or whatever, I guess it's called. Or MD, not
yes,
PhD.
MD. Yeah, the Medical College of Georgia is there.
Yeah. So that's cool. It's an interesting town there.
Yeah, it's good. It's like good for outdoorsy stuff, but anything else, you know. It kind of smells like a dog food plant because there's like a breeze. If it blows just right, there's a dog food plant and it gets blown into town.
Okay.
Yeah, it kind of smells every once in a while.
That's funny. Okay, cool. I didn't know that about you. That's cool.
Yeah.
So I guess if you could go back and talk to younger Liberty when she was like kind of making that decision, I guess, to leave the school, or you were kind of in that place where you're feeling pressured your freshman year, what would you go back and tell her what you know now?
Yeah, I think definitely that it's okay to be different. It's okay to be authentically you. It's okay to not want to like go ham every single weekend and drink tequila out of a water bottle.
Yeah.
When you have a game and practice the next morning, it's okay not to do that. And it's okay to be different. Like the Lord calls us to be different and embrace the things that make us different. Because people are going to be attached to that. They're going to get into that. They're going to be like, oh, this is you. And that's how people come to know Jesus, when people are different, and that's okay. And I definitely learned that going into my sophomore year, when it was like very tough making that transition from freshman year, surrounded by all my tough times and partying and teammates that were pressuring, into being different and starting a house church and kind of taking a different path.
Yeah.
But I couldn't have done it without the friends that were so supportive and like loved the Lord too, and that was such a huge part of it. So I think 2 things is it's okay to be different and surround yourself with people that also chase the same mission as you and love the Lord.
Yeah, that's good. So I want to spend a lot of time in the episode talking about dating and how you're navigating that. So I guess starting out, what would be your advice, or what would you say, like, in terms of dating, how has it changed for you since you're actually following Jesus, or was there much dating kind of beforehand?
Yeah, so I guess I started following Jesus when I was 12, so there wasn't really any dating. I hope not, except for, my 6-year-old boyfriend,
Oh, okay. Oh.
I'm kidding. So there wasn't really any dating before I was a believer. So I feel like not much has changed because I knew the Lord when I started dating. But I feel like it definitely has evolved as my relationship with the Lord has grown.
Yeah.
Like I know that I want to date someone that is also on knows Jesus very well, so I don't think there's been like big changes. I think it's been more gradually learning like, oh, these are like some qualities that this person displayed that I really love. And I would love to be with someone that also displays those qualities,
Yeah, that's good. Awesome. What would you say, if you could speak to people maybe that aren't Christians, like, is dating, in your experience, better as a Christian compared to maybe friends of yours or people you've talked to that aren't dating as a Christian?
So I don't know if it changes it that much. See, I'll say like my friends that aren't believers, like they struggle with the same things, whether it's ghosting, whether it's struggling, meeting people, where do I find people? So my friends that don't know Jesus, there are some similar struggles, which is cool because there is like a certain connection where it's like, oh, you're struggling with these things, so am I. But I think what changes when you know Jesus and you're dating is definitely like, that there is a plan that the Lord has, regardless of whether it didn't work out with someone. I feel like my friends that don't know Jesus, they get broken up with and they're like, my world's ending.
Yeah.
I don't have any validation anymore. I don't have any hope. This guy broke my heart. Whereas because I know Jesus, I know that there's a plan and that there is something so much greater than what I have in mind, I think also dating as a believer really casts any insecurities. I think a lot of girls struggle with insecurities in dating, whether it's your ability to connect with someone, your ability to look a certain way. But I think knowing the Lord just kind of casts those insecurities a little bit further back, and they're kind of on the forefront for my friends that aren't believers.
Yeah, that's good. What would you say you've observed that men do well in dating, or things that they don't do well, kind of on the inverse of that?
Yeah, I think it depends on the guy. I think some guys some of them are really good at planning dates. They're really good at communicating. They're really good at telling you where they stand. I've been on dates with guys, or I've been dating guys where it's like, here's where I'm at. I want to clearly communicate this, and they tell you like, I'm enjoying to get to know you. I want to continue dating, or hey, I'm not seeing where this is going, so like, let's stop. So I think communication is a big thing that some guys really got and some guys definitely don't.
Okay.
I think that's...
Do you like that?
I personally love communication. As a girl, it's great to know like where you stand with someone. I think there's such thing as like over communication, that you don't have to tell every thought in your mind.
Okay.
But I think guys speaking about where you stand with them is huge. I think some guys kind of miss that, where maybe it comes from like a spot of being nervous or being scared to like express those things, or maybe those thoughts aren't even going on. But for a girl, it's so nice to have clear communication, where you stand, how you're feeling, and that's a huge thing that some guys got, some don't.
Okay. And then anything that they don't do well, or that was like kind of some men do that well, some men don't do that well?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the guy. I feel like some guys, they don't know how to shoot their shot. I feel like a girl respects someone shooting their shot, Like I respect a good ask out. Like if someone's interested and they just ask you out, even if you're not interested, you have to be like, oh, I'm sorry, like I don't see this in that way. It makes me have so much more respect for that person if they're able to just shoot their shot and put themselves out there and be a little uncomfortable and just put themselves out there. I feel like a lot of guys don't want to do that because they're scared or fearful of rejection, which is fair. All of us are fearful of rejection to some degree.
Yeah.
But
right.
I would say that's a big one that I have so much respect for a guy when they shoot their shot.
Yeah. Let's say a guy specifically wanted to ask you on a date or was interested in taking you out.
Mm-hmm.
What would be your preferred way for a guy to do that?
Yeah, I feel like it doesn't really matter that much. I feel like however you want to do it is fine. I feel like a DM, honestly, if you don't have their number, is okay. Or
Yeah.
you can be like, hey, I've been thinking about going to this farmer's market. Let's go here. Or like sending a Atlanta guide thing to them and being like, hey, did you see this place? Like, you want to go?
So not necessarily using the word date even?
Oh.
Or do you prefer like
I think
they say explicitly it's a date?
I think verbiage of a date I hate the verbiage of hang out. Do you want to hang out? Or I feel like they could be like, hey, I saw this. I don't know why I'm using farmer's market as an example. But
I love the farmer's market.
we're in farmer's market season, so I guess that's why.
Yeah.
We'll use farmer's market again.
Have you been to the Freedom Farmers Market?
I haven't been to a farmer's market in like years.
Oh my gosh. You're missing out on the Freedom Farmers Market.
See, maybe I should go. But yeah, I feel like, okay, so like let's say it's a farmer's market.
Yeah.
The guy DMs you about the farmer's market. Hey, there's this farmer's market on Saturday. I would love to go and make a date out of it or something. Or I'd love to take you on a date there and maybe we could grab some ice cream afterwards or something.
Okay.
I feel like that verbiage does matter to making it very clear to the girl.
Yeah.
Instead of just like, hey, do you want to hang out? Do you want to go to this thing? Because then the girl's like, is this like as friends
is it
or
not?
Yeah. So I feel like, and then the girl kind of knows what to expect if it is a date. But if you're not sure, like if you want to date this person, I feel like it's easy to be like, hey, me and these like 3 friends are going to the farmer's market. Do you and some friends want to join us? And that's a good way to like get to know them in this like friend way, but you're not asking them out and just saying hanging out, you know?
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's what I feel like I maybe have done that wrong in the past.
What have you done?
Now that I'm thinking about it, where I'm someone that likes to include people.
Me too.
And include women. And so if I just send someone an invite like, hey, me and some friends are going to this thing or like doing this, I guess a girl could see that as maybe it's me asking them on a date or like, oh, he must be interested. He's inviting me to come to this
I feel like it also just kind of depends on how you like phrase it or how your like vibes have been together. If you're very friendly and maybe you're just like inviting people to stuff, like I feel like that's could come off as friendly if you ask them. I feel like it just depends how you say it versus like your past vibes of you guys hanging out.
Yeah.
Or if you're like, hey, like me and some friends are going to this. Do you want to come? Maybe we'll bring some friends. I feel like that makes it more friendly, you know?
Okay.
I don't know. Just depends on the vibes when you're in person too.
Okay. Good to know though. Like for men and for me, you know, like, okay, how you're phrasing things, matters.
Definitely. For sure.
Okay. Good to know. What would you say? Like, okay, there's primarily single men that listen to the podcast. We're trying to, date better as single men. What would be like your one, thing? Like, hey guys, like from what I've seen, here's how you can really like date well and pursue women well. Yeah.
I feel like communication is the biggest thing. Like communication is kind in dating, and it's so important, and a girl will respect and value that so much. It's so important to, whether it's your verbiage asking them out, saying it's a date instead of hanging out, or saying that you stand here versus you're not interested. That kind of stuff is so important, because I feel like when we don't do those things, we can kind of end up in this situationship territory. Where one person's really invested, maybe the other person's confused, and you're just in this weird like middle ground of what are we doing? And it's tough when you get in that position. And I think the biggest thing to avoid that is to communicate and be kind in that. Yeah.
You said at the beginning that you kind of started this 50 dates after getting out of a situationship. What, looking back on it, maybe was your biggest lesson from that situation?
Yeah, definitely.
Situationship.
Not a relationship, a situationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I learned so much from that. I learned that if you're not in a relationship, that the pressure of a relationship shouldn't be put on that. Whether like if you guys are friends and you're leaning on them like a boyfriend or like a girlfriend, that just like doesn't need to happen. Like that's for boyfriend and girlfriends. If you're using someone as like an emotional crutch, or in other ways, it doesn't need to happen if you're not boyfriend, girlfriend. And that's so important. Like if you're just friends, I feel like it's easy with guys and girls being friends to like start acting that way, and those barriers can kind of be blurred and kind of like, oh, we're acting like boyfriend, girlfriend, but we're just friends to everybody else. And I think it's important to one, avoid it with communication, but also like not get into that. I feel like that's the biggest takeaway is with guy friends not breaking those barriers, or if we are, like, communicate about it, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What would you say in terms of like guys and girls being friends? Is that something that can work out, or like was that what happened with the situationship? You were friends and it just kind of got blurred?
Yeah, for us, we were friends and it got blurred.
Yeah.
It happens to the best of us. I feel like people have to experience it sometimes to realize, like, oh, maybe that isn't the best. I feel like very rarely it does work out when those lines are blurred, unless like there's a lot of communication about it. Like, hey, oh, we're like, this is a date, you know, not just this confusing thing.
Yeah.
What was your original question?
Can men and women just be friends, you think? Like, is that even possible?
Yeah. What's the saying? Like, men and women can't be friends.
Yeah.
One of my family...
It's like a hot, I don't know. It's like a hot
take.
button topic.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, I wonder that.
Yeah.
I think there can be like professional relationships with men and women for sure. Like they can work together, and they can have like some level of friendship within like a friend group probably.
Yeah.
I think like one-on-one, like very more in-depth relationships, I feel like that's really hard. I feel like someone's gonna catch feelings along the line. But I think like in a friend group, yeah. Or like, let's say like my friend's husband, I can be friends with them. Or like there's a friend group of some of my friends, it's like 4 girls, 5 girls, and like 3 guys, and most of us are like friends, you know. And I think it's possible within like a bigger friend group, but I think one-on-one in depth is kind of hard. Yeah, you know.
I have a funny story. So I had, like, when I first got plugged in church and Christian community 3 years ago, I was part of a friend group of like 10 of us. I think there were like there were 4 guys and like 6 girls or 5 girls, and 3 guys. I'm the only guy that wasn't one of these, one of them, but they're all now like engaged or like dating or married to one of the girls.
See, it's great. It's great when it works out, you know?
Yeah.
It can be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how you like meet people, through friends.
That's true, yeah.
So there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
I think so.
And I feel like it was just like fun. You know, we were just like, oh, everybody was hanging out together and, you know, being friendly. And then I guess at some point the guy communicated that he was interested in being, you know, more than a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the key factor. He communicated it. I think that's the important part.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
cool. I guess from your perspective, how has it been like cultivating friendships as an adult, you know, here in Atlanta, or just encouragement you'd have for single men and women listening? Like, how can they go about just making friends? Yeah,
I mean, friends, they're so important. I've like seen that so many times throughout my life, how important friends are and how important connection is with others. I think making friends, it's so important just to put yourself out there, whether it's in dating or literally just making friends. Putting yourself out there is so important.
Yeah.
Going to the things, the biggest way I've met people is I love sports, doing something that I love. I've met most of my friends in Atlanta through spike ball or through rock climbing. And I feel like we had something in common, and going out and doing that was a great way to meet people. I feel like just putting yourself out there and kind of sometimes going to the uncomfortable thing, whether it's like hot and single and like meeting people there. Yeah. It's important to like go to those things and be a little uncomfortable, because you're not going to meet someone if you're just sitting on your couch. You're not going to meet friends. You're not going to meet a significant other. So it's important to get out there and do things and find people that have, you know, like-minded goals and also love the Lord and, you know, enjoy the same things as you.
Yeah. When you've been going out with men in the past or like evaluating guys, is that an important factor? Like, oh, do they have good community? Do they have good friends?
Yeah, most definitely. I feel like that is one of the most important things. Even like on dating apps, like I was on Hinge swiping. If it's like just mirror selfies, first of all, mirror selfies are a red flag. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They are. But if I'm swiping and there's like no pictures with friends, I'm like, oh, like they like lack community. And that's like honestly a big like turn off. And so if they got their boys, they got the friends. It's such an important thing. And you know that I feel like a lot of times, let's say you're like start dating someone, it's easy if you don't have outside community just to be overconsumed with that person where you're this is your whole world, this is everything.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have community, like you guys need to go hang out separately. You still need to hang out with your friends. Like that's important. And it's important to have your bros. It's important to have your girls, you know? And that part of community is so important in dating. And also it's important to have friends and people that can back you and support you.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that looking back on when I had my previous relationship that, I just like spent all my time with her. Like I didn't really have very many friends.
Yeah.
And looking back on it, I wish I had more friends that I could have been hanging out with or doing stuff with. And also you can speak into, if you're good friends with someone, you can speak into the relationship. Like, oh, maybe there's this red flag you're not seeing, or
right.
Hey, there's this situation going on that maybe you should think closer about this. Like I want when or if I start dating someone in the future, like to bring the relationship to my community.
Yeah.
What do y'all think about this?
Yeah, I think that is totally important. And I feel like just bringing someone around your friends, they can get such a good vibe for like red flags you don't even see, or
right.
And they can just feel out that person and see whether there's like chemistry or see how you guys match together.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so important.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. You talked a little bit about dating apps and being on Hinge. Is that something like, are you still on dating apps or? Yeah.
So when I first started the 50 dates, I was on dating apps. And I was on them for a while, and it was hard connecting with people off of there. I found it a little bit more challenging, or I would message someone and then it would just be like a dead end, and like the conversation would end, which was frustrating. I found it so much better just to like meet people in person, and get to know them there or meet them out in the wild, you know?
Yeah.
It's so much better. I like have the app and will like swipe through occasionally. If I like see someone I already know on there, then that's usually like a good segue. That's pretty much all I use it for. I'm like, oh, I see someone I know. This is funny.
Oh yeah.
Like maybe they would be one of the dates. I feel like that's what it's good for. Maybe if you're like in a college town and you have a lot of mutual friends, then you see someone on there. It's a good segue.
Yeah.
But if it's just a bunch of randos, it's kind of hard to make like a real connection.
Yeah. Do you have Christian on like your profiles and stuff?
Yeah, I do. And you can like set that in your profile to like only show people that are Christian too.
Is that what you have?
Yeah.
So that's something that I'm interested to talk a little bit about, because I had Christian on my profiles, but I wasn't really a Christian. You know, like I didn't really have a relationship with Jesus. Have you seen that with a lot of men though? Like a lot of men will have Christian, but then they're like not actually trying to have faith be an important part of the relationship.
Yeah, most definitely. And I feel like, and if they have Christian on their profile, that's awesome. Like they have some sort of knowledge of the Lord, and maybe we go on a date usually, and I'll like try to bring up on a first date, like, hey, I went to church on Sunday. What'd you do? Or like try to like feel it out.
Yeah.
Or like, hey, I led Young Life in college. That was a big part of my life. Or just other things that kind of drop like, hey, faith is important. And
see if they like talk about it themselves or something.
Yeah, because usually if knowing the Lord is important to them, then they'll like take that as an opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they talk about it, sometimes people are more shy to talk about it. And sometimes if they are, then, like, we'll go on a second date and I'll be like, hey, like, where do you stand with this? Kind of a little bit more outright. Because we're just kind of, like, wasting time if we don't align on this. Because I'm not going to date someone who isn't even in that way. I feel like that just creates challenges. So, yeah, that's the way that I do it.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that's hopefully encouraging to women that will listen too. I want to ask you about just in general, like encouragement that you would have for women that are listening, that are single.
Yeah.
How have you learned to trust God's timing when it comes to relationships and dating, and how would you encourage single women to be able to do that better?
Definitely. I mean, I've been on 37 first dates. That's a lot of first dates.
Yeah.
I could easily be like, man, the Lord hasn't brought me my husband yet.
Right.
Why am I not in love? Why?
Yeah.
You know, and I think just knowing that the Lord has crazy funny timing and crazy good timing. And I have a feeling I'm going to go on a 51st date and not be filming, and that's going to be my husband or something funny like that, you know? And I think that is so reassuring to know that the Lord has such an awesome timing and so much better timing than you could imagine. And it's easy to put pressure on, I have to know whether this person is my husband on this first date. I have to know whether this is going to be my spouse. You just don't have to. The Lord is going to work it out and bring someone into your life that feels right and feels natural. And we don't have to put all that pressure on it, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a big thing. And also, one of the biggest thing I've learned is that there are good guys out there that want to date and value connection. And that's been proven so true time again. There's people that chase after the Lord and want to get to know you and want to date. That's the biggest encouragement through all of this, for sure.
So out of the 37 dates, how many have been good guys? I'm just kidding.
A good 32.
Okay, there you go.
Pretty good ratio.
Yeah. So what would you say women that are listening? I feel like I hear this a lot from just female friends of mine. Like, there are no good guys out there, you know? Like, is that something that I guess you've found it not to be true, right? So encouragement you would have to women around that. Anything that comes to mind? Yeah,
I think we can get in our head and get to this point where there's no good guys left. There's no one good. And it might be like where we're finding these guys. Are we finding these guys on dating apps and they have very different values than us? And maybe they're posting all mirror selfies. They don't have community. They don't have their own hobbies. And I think it depends like where we're meeting these guys, where we're finding them. I have found that people I've met through mutual friends or in pickup sports or at church or out in the wild, or just like with similar values even on dating apps, that those are the good guys. And I think it depends where we find them, where we look for them. And I think also it comes down to something that I've really tried to keep at the center of this during the whole series is that I'm chasing after my own things in my life too. I'm still leaning into my hobbies. I'm still leaning into church, leaning into community. And I think if we're pulling away from those things, it's easy to find guys that aren't as good. But if we're running after the things that we love, it's easy to run into a guy that also loves those things and is one of the good guys.
Yeah.
You know?
That's great. What would you say, like a story or two that come to mind from the whole series you've been doing, and or just in general, like a date you've been on that, okay, this would be something I would love to like have replicated in the future, or okay, this one really stood out as it really meant a lot to me? Yeah.
I think honestly it's kind of like the thing that has stood the most out to me during this series is honestly like a relationship ending, which is crazy.
Really?
But it was the coolest thing ever. I had one of my dates on my podcast and we talked about this actually.
Yeah. What's your podcast?
It's called It's a Date.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'll link it.
Thanks. But yeah, we talked about this on my podcast where I went on a couple dates with this guy and it was going great. And I wanted it to continue. It was awesome. But he didn't see it going that way and continuing. But this guy so clearly communicated that with me and was like, hey, this is where I stand. This is what's going on. Yada, 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 this and this and this. And was so clear in that it made me like respect him more. And I feel like if people just give up these like blow off answers where it's like, I'm not interested, that's all, bye. Yeah. Like it's kind of tough, or like I'm not in a place to date right now. Like give some like reasons and be clear and communicative, because that gave me so much respect for that person. And now like I had him on my podcast. We're cool, we're chill, like it's okay. Yeah. And so it's so cool to see something like ending display those qualities where I'm like, wow, I like respect this person even more because they were so clear. And I said it before, but communication is kindness, and it's so important in dating. So that was like something that stood out so much to me.
Yeah.
And that's been kind of like the whole premise of all of this is communicate.
Yeah.
It's what I preach every single time I have a podcast.
That's good. What did that guy do? I don't know if you don't mind sharing. Like, how did he? Maybe there's guys that are like, I mean, it is kind of scary. Like I guess ended 2 kind of like relationships, and it was like, like it can be
it's scary.
I guess it's like it's tough too. Like even I feel like the person that's ending, if you're like really invested in the person, like you care about them, you don't want to see them get hurt, but you know it's like for the best. So like I guess how did he do that, and why was it so memorable?
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say this too, like I've ended times that I was dating someone, and it's so hard. So you are so scared of hurting that person, and honestly, the times that I've ended things, it's been harder on me than the times that I've gotten broken up with or whatever, or ended things. It's so much more challenging being the one to end it, I think personally. But anyway, so he was just so clear about it and gave like reasons why. Like, and I like want to know the why a lot of times. I want to know like, well, why? Because if they just give some cop-out answer or just some random like vague answer, you're like, what do you mean? Like why?
Yeah.
And I feel like girls like to know the why. I mean, you can be like kind in it and not harsh.
Yeah.
And it you don't, if you're like not attracted to them, don't be like, you're ugly. But like, just, I feel like just being kind, like, hey, I don't see this aligning, or like, this is going on in my life. I don't think I want to pursue this further. I feel like those really clear examples meant so much to me and made it so memorable. And also, I feel like we were both just like casual about it and good about it, and just like talked about it. And I feel like understanding the why gave me so much more like peace about it ending, and it just made me more at ease about all of it.
Did he get together with you in person or like a phone call, or?
We were in person. Okay. Which I feel like could be awkward and could not be.
Yeah.
I feel like it wasn't awkward because just the nature of the guy, it was just like very casual and chill. There's nothing against a phone call. Yeah, I feel like a phone call is fine too if it's early on. I feel like if you're really invested, then in person is the best.
Been dating like 6 months. Yeah. And just a phone call, a text.
Yeah. That's so mean. It's so mean. A DM, a Snapchat.
Yeah. I think that I think I agree. Like my ex, I met up in person with her, and we ended things. And then my most recent time I'd been on dates with a girl. We only went on 3 dates, and I just called her. So I thought that was, I don't know if maybe I blew it, but
no, that makes sense. I feel like 3 dates, like call the person, it's okay.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, cool. What do you think about, just a couple of questions left. So what do you think about, like, as you reflect on your life to this point, or the season of life, is there a Bible verse that comes to mind that you're like, this really encapsulates like what I want to be about?
Yeah, definitely. The Bible verse in my Instagram bio.
Oh yeah.
It's 1 John 3:18. Hold on, let me pull it up.
Yep.
I have a screenshot in my favorites folder because it's fun to have there. Let me pull it up. I'll read it to you.
1 John 3:18.
Yes.
Okay,
so it's, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. And I think that's so important. And I try to like live my life by that every single day, like not just loving through words and things I say, but actually like backing things with action and being there for people and showing up and loving people through how I act and how I show up in their life, and am loyal to my friends. And I feel like that is so important. Like, we can love people through words, but showing it through your actions is so important. Even like in dating, I feel like showing it through your actions, showing it through communication, showing it through all these different ways, even in dating, is so important besides just words,
Okay.
Yeah, that's my Bible verse I love.
Okay, last thing, I ask everybody this. What's one thing that specifically single men that are listening, you want them to take away from this episode? Okay, like head into the weekend, like write this down on their phone, take a note.
Yeah.
This conversation that Liberty had on the Single Man podcast.
Yeah, I think Okay. Well, we talked about communication. I feel like that's been hammered home. I
Yeah.
feel like I got to say something different.
Yeah.
I think definitely it's okay to shoot your shot. It's okay to like go on dates. It's okay to ask girls on dates, and don't let fear get in the way of that. A fear of rejection, because honestly, a girl's gonna respect you more for shooting your shot. I feel like even if the girl ends up rejecting you, like there's been times people have asked me out, and I'm like, ooh, I don't feel like going that way. Honestly, I have so much more respect for them. As a female, I'm like, good for him. He's shooting his shot. He's doing things. Like, that's awesome. Even if like you get rejected in it, I feel like the girl just gains respect. And I feel like it's important not to be limited by fear of whatever it is as a guy, and put your shots out there. You know, it's not as scary as it is. And I'd say there's good guys, there's good girls too.
Yeah.
And it's okay to put yourself out there and shoot your shot and be a little uncomfortable. It's good. It's good for you.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much, Liberty.
Happy to be here. Thanks so much for having me. It was
Yeah.
awesome.
I think
you're doing great stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's just cool seeing what you're doing and like how God's working through the 50 dates that you're doing, and how it's been just a way to encourage people like to communicate better, to go on dates. And so, yeah, grateful you would come on and share some of your wisdom with the listeners of the Single Man podcast. And excited to continue to support everything that you're doing as well.
Thank you. You too. I'm gonna listen to all the episodes now. You got a new fan.
Let's go. Yeah, I need to come to the next pickleball event too.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I host singles pickleball events, and Carlton had a broken thumb for the last one, so we'll get you on the next one. We'll get you on the court.
Next one, I'm coming for sure. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in this week. If you enjoyed this episode with Liberty, I'd love for you to leave a like, leave a comment, let Liberty and I know what your favorite part was, your favorite takeaway, and hope you have a great rest of your Friday. This has been Carlton French. Hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Single Man Podcast. If someone you know would benefit from this week's episode, I'd love for you to text them the link and invite them to listen. You never know how a simple invitation could change someone's life. We'll be back next Friday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific, with a new episode. Until then, check out the video version of the podcast on YouTube, and you can engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.